intense, intense, intense. So, you want to know more about the word intense? Well, let's break it down together. The part of speech for intense is an adjective, which means it describes or modifies a noun. Now, when we say that something is intense, what do we mean? Commonly, people use this word to describe strong emotions like excitement, anger, or concentration. Think about watching a thrilling movie or playing a super competitive sport. The key idea here is that intense indicates a high level of energy, passion, or focus. Just a special note, when describing physical sensations like heat or cold, intense can also imply a strong or extreme degree. But in most cases, it's all about the emotional or mental state, not just the physical one. Make sense? Here are 3 practical example sentences using the word intense, along with their respective contexts. As I walked into the yoga studio, I was immediately immersed in an intense 90-minute vinyasa flow class that pushed me to my physical limits. This is a formal usage of the word, where it's used to describe a specific type of exercise. On the other hand, when discussing the latest Marvel movie with friends at a coffee shop, someone might say, "Oh man, the action scenes were so intense. I was on the edge of my seat." In this casual conversation usage, the word is employed to add emphasis and excitement. In an academic presentation on stress management, a researcher might mention that prolonged exposure to intense physical activity can have deleterious effects on mental health if not properly monitored. Here, the word is used in a formal or professional context to convey the severity of an impact. So you want to know about this word that describes strong feelings or physical sensations? It's basically something that grabs your attention and makes you feel deeply involved or affected by something. Imagine being completely absorbed in an exciting movie, a thrilling sports game, or even a really good workout. That's kind of what I'm trying to explain. Mainly, it's used to describe situations or activities that are very engaging, emotionally charged, or physically demanding. If you think about it, similar concepts might be engrossing, captivating, or exhilarating. They all convey a sense of being fully invested in something. In terms of what it does or how it's used, this word is often used to describe art, sports, music, or even thrilling experiences like roller coasters or extreme adventures, basically anything that gets your adrenaline pumping. Manipulate, manipulate, manipulate. So, let's break down the word manipulate together. As a verb, it means to influence or control someone's thoughts, feelings, or actions in a clever or sneaky way, often for your own benefit. In common usage, you might hear phrases like, "She manipulated her friend into lending her money," or, "The politician was accused of manipulating public opinion." What's interesting about this word is that it can have a slightly negative connotation, implying that someone is using underhanded tactics to get what they want. However, in some contexts, such as science and psychology, the word can be used more neutrally, referring to the process of influencing variables or behaviors through careful design or control. Just remember, when you're using this word, consider whether it implies a positive or negative intention. That will help you use it accurately. In a formal setting, such as a court of law, someone might say, "The prosecution's lawyer accused the defendant of attempting to manipulate public opinion by releasing carefully crafted statements to the media." This usage highlights the word's connotation of insincere influence. In contrast, In casual conversation with friends, you might joke about how your friend manipulates their cat into doing tricks for treats. Here, the tone is light-hearted and playful, implying a gentle form of control. For example, in a business meeting, someone might say, "Our competitor is trying to manipulate market trends by releasing new products that align with current consumer demand." This usage emphasizes the intentional direction or influence on market forces. So you want to know about manipulate? Well, essentially, when we talk about manipulating something, we're referring to the act of influencing or controlling it in some way, often by using clever tactics or strategies. It's like being a master chess player, moving pieces around to get what you want. A key characteristic is that it involves using your skills and knowledge to get others to do or think what you want them to, usually without them realizing it. You might see similar concepts in words like influence, persuade, or even control. They all have something to do with getting someone or something to behave a certain way. As for how it's used, people often talk about manipulating situations, relationships, or even emotions to get what they want. And, unfortunately, sometimes that can be at the expense of others. So it's not always a good thing. Minimize. 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 So, let's talk about the word minimize. The part of speech is a verb, which means it expresses an action or a state of being. Now, when we say someone has to minimize something, we mean that they need to make it as small or as little as possible. For example, if you're trying to reduce your expenses, you might say, "I'm going to minimize my spending on non-essential items." This means you'll be trying to cut down on things like eating out or buying clothes. Common usage of the word is in a professional setting, but it's also used in everyday conversations. One important thing to note about the word minimize is that its opposite is not exactly maximize. Although they're related, if you want to make something as big or as much as possible, you would use the word reduce instead of minimize. To minimize travel costs, we should book our flights at least 2 weeks in advance. My friend, I've learned that from previous experiences, and it's just common sense, right? In formal situations like academic writing, you might say, in order to minimize bias in the survey results, a stratified sampling method was employed. Meanwhile, in everyday conversations with colleagues or friends, using phrases like, "Let's try to minimize distractions during our team meeting," can be super helpful and easy to understand. So, you want to know about this idea of minimizing. Okay, let me explain. When we talk about minimizing, we're essentially trying to reduce something, like its size, amount, or effort required. The main characteristic is that it's about making things smaller, lighter, or more manageable. It's often used in situations where there's a lot going on and you need to make space for the important stuff. Think of it like decluttering your room. You remove all the unnecessary things so you can focus on what really matters. Similar concepts might be reduce or cut down, and synonyms could be lessen or diminish. The idea is that by doing less, or using fewer resources, we can achieve more with less stress and hassle.